Hi booktube, my name is Laura and welcome to my channel. You may have just seen me film a TBR unboxing a few minutes ago, so I'm wearing the same makeup. My very poor attempt at cat's eye. Pretty messy, but that's alright for a freehand. Same shirt, whatever. Hopefully my brain is in gear a little bit more now that I drink some water. I'm sure it's not. Anyways, this is a Friday Reads. I didn't do one last week and I thought, oh, it's fine, it's no big deal, but I really kind of missed it. So this is a wrap up of 2 weeks of reading essentially. Of course, not in counting magazines. Boy, we are off to a really good start. I would try and film this again from the start. It's less than a minute in, but I know myself and it's not going to get any better. So we're just going to plow on through with all of my weird little mistakes. So a week ago, Monday, I read one book totally. Let me back this up again. See, good thing this is going to be on the internet forever. So I only finished 3 books in the last 2 weeks, and I have been working on a 4th one, which I will talk about last. It's a big one. So anyways, my first book I finished 2 weeks ago was Strange Planet by Nathan Pyle. My friend Joy and I, hi Joy, she's not watching, we get together for Christmas. We try in December, it never works. We try in January, it never works. So this time we actually met at the very, very end of February to exchange our Christmas presents. I think last year we met in May or June. I think once we met in August for Christmas stuff. So yeah, this was pretty good for us. Anyway, so she got me this book, which I had heard of, and I think I had seen maybe once or twice just in passing, but never really looked into or anything. This is a little collection of comics about an alien who is on Earth, and their little adventures. Maybe if you pause this, you can read this. Getting a tattoo. I really like the language and I like the jokes about humans. I really like when they make fun of cats because I am a former cat mom and it's really funny. Anyway, so this was really, really cute. 4 stars. I liked it a lot. And I saw 2 other YouTubers read this, booktubers read this last week when I read it too, which is a weird little coincidence. So if this seems something cute to you, something you'd like to read, I highly recommend Strange Planet by Nathan Pyle. Next up, I really wanted to read a book that I had been looking forward to and saving for someday in the future. I do that a lot with books I really want to read. I just hang on to them for some mysterious future point. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to actually read a book when I wanted to read it. So I came in here and I just looked at my shelf a little bit, pulled off my first layer of double stack to look at the stuff behind that's actually properly alphabetized, and saw this one. And I thought, yeah, you know what, I'm going to read that. So in an hour and a half, I had started this book, read it cover to cover. It was really fun and delightful. Anyways, that book is Bridget Jones's baby, The Diaries. It is a lot like the 3rd movie, but it doesn't matter. It's set up as Bridget giving her diaries to her son. So it's like, dear son, here's what really happened. Sorry about the swearing and the cigarettes and the sex and whatever. But here's what really happened. So you follow Bridget through her pregnancy and everything. And the Bridget Jones Diaries, the whole series came out when I was in college. So I was very close to the same age as her. And it's one of those book series and also movie series that is just part of my DNA. Whether I want it to be there or not, it's just in there. Much like watching Grease and Footloose and Top Gun, which were 3 back-to-backs on a VHS that my parents had that I watched all the time, essentially. They're just built into me now. Like quotations and scenes and music and things, like they're just in there. So this was wonderful to come back to essentially an old friend and read her misadventures, and yeah, it was just lovely. So 4 stars, mostly for nostalgia's sake, maybe 3.5 otherwise, but yeah, I really, really liked this. So happy to be caught up. And the 3rd and final book that I finished in the last 2 weeks is the 5th in the Virgin River series, Second Chance Pass by Robyn Carr. So I started these earlier this year, the end of last year, when I heard about them, that Netflix was going to be making a series adapting this series of books. I don't know say series a lot of times today, apparently. And I heard about this from one of my YouTubers that I watch. I haven't watched her in a while. Her name is Sarah. She's Canadian, lives in Toronto. Channel name escapes me. I'll link it below. Oy. Anyways, she had talked about this series and the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn, of which I own the first few and haven't started, but that I'll just try these. Generally speaking, I am not a huge contemporary romance, contemporary literature kind of person, and I just inhaled the first one. I fell in deep with the whole Virgin River crowd and all the characters. So for this 5th book, we follow Vanessa and Paul. Vanessa, they call her Fanny. She was married to Matt, a Marine who was killed, and Paul was his best friend. So Paul stays in the small town of Virgin River where Vanessa's parents live. He stayed there and supported her through the end of her pregnancy, through her grieving, through her birth. After little Matt was born, he left, but he's been in love with Vanessa since the night that he and Matt saw Vanessa. He saw Vanessa first, Matt saw her the second, and he approached her, so Paul just sort of stepped back and whatever. So Paul is in love with Vanessa. Vanessa's always had a thing for Paul, a soft spot for Paul. Her husband has passed away, but knows that they were respectful, blah, blah. So do they get together? Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Of course they do. But that was a little annoying because I find Vanessa as a character fairly annoying. She has a short temper and doesn't listen. But for some reason, like this particular combination of her personality, she's one of those people that just jumps to an assumption in a conversation. She interrupts people talking to her constantly, which drives me bonkers. And she just never listens again. She just talks, interrupts, and the person says, okay, wait, well, hang on a second, let me, and then she just keeps steamrolling them, gets pissed off, and then walks away. And then everyone just lets her do it and just leaves her. And there's like huge misunderstandings for days or weeks or months at a time. Like, how stupid is this? If I was in front of her face, honest to God, I would tell her to shut up. If it didn't work, I would physically cover her mouth with my hand. Like, can you just stop and listen for literally 35 seconds altogether? That would solve all this stuff. That kind of behavior drives me bonkers. So I don't really like Vanessa. She's fine, but not the good part of the book. What I did like about this book is that they always include, and actually all the books, they always include the other characters you have already met. So you see Jack and Mel, you see Paige and Preacher, you see Mike and Bree, and all the other army guys are, I don't think any Marines, I think they're all army guys that come back into town every year, and all the other townspeople, and like Ricky and his grandmother, and this just sounds like a country song, I realize, but I liked the parts that were not about Fanny and Paul, which was only maybe half of it, and I liked hearing about everybody else a lot more. So this was a 3 knocked down because Vanessa drives me bonkers. And I wanted more about everybody else in town and not about these 2 numbnutses. So 3 stars. I will, of course, read the rest of them. The whole series is stacked up. It is there. There are, I think, 18 books in the series or something like that. I don't know. So I have them all. They're rating here. So this is number 5. It was okay. So that is all I read the last 2 weeks, but I have been reading. Not as much as I could have been because I get sucked into YouTube things like 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown and watching old episodes of The Graham Norton Show. I have already seen when they were live like 10 years ago. And I got hooked into watching a whole bunch of Greg Davis's stand-up. He is so freaking funny. It made me laugh so hard I almost like peed my pants once because I knew the story he was telling on Graham and like the clip and everything. So anyways, so I got hooked into that quite a bit this week. And I also got hooked into watching Little Britain again. I watched the whole 2nd season and just laughed and laughed. 3 of my favorite bits and that my mom and I do for each other all the time were in the 2nd season. So anyways, I got watching a lot of TV this last week. I should say my favorite bits in Little Britain. I mean, it's always funny, but David Walliams' character of Anne, the one who always goes, eh, eh, eh. We like the one where she goes to feed ducks and then just pees in the lake and she's like hopping along with her skirt up that whole time. That was one of ours. The other 2 are with Lou and Andy. One is when Lou is introducing Andy to his girlfriend, and Andy doesn't like it. Andy's in a wheelchair, for those of you who don't know, but obviously faking it. So he gets out of, this girl's watching him. He gets out of the wheelchair, stands up as Lou is getting drinks from the bar, turns the wheelchair on its side, spins the top wheel, and lays down. So when Lou turns around, he just says, "She pushed me." And the other one with Lou and Andy is when they're in a park and getting ice cream, and Lou comes back and Andy's nowhere to be found in this wheelchair, and he's Andy, and Andy is up this enormous tree sitting on a branch, and he says, "How did you get up there?" And he says, "I fell." Like, it's so ridiculous. I know. I'm sorry, probably none of you find that funny, but my mom, when I say I fell, she pushed me, and no, all the time to each other. So yeah, that was really fun. Let me just talk for 3 minutes about funny British stuff that I find terribly amusing. Anyways, okay, back to books. Sorry. Whew. Okay, I have been working on reading a book I should be finished with technically by 6 o'clock today. It is almost 2 p.m. I am not going to read the last 450 pages in 4 hours. That would be Cecilia by Fanny Burney. So I am halfway through, just about. I am like 20 pages halfway through. And I wanted to chat a little bit about it. When I finish it, I will do a proper, like, full-on, on its own review of this book. But I wanted to chat a little bit about it. And if anyone, it's going to be a little bit spoilery. I mean, it can't be too spoilery because it is only halfway through. But if anyone does not want to hear about this, or wants to read it themselves and wants to be totally surprised, feel free to click off now. Thanks for stopping. Hi and goodbye. Thank you. I hope you subscribe. You know, that whole spiel. See you soon. For those of you who are sticking around, this is a wonderful book. I am really, really enjoying this deep dive into it. So, Cecilia, the short version of this book is Cecilia is a very young heiress. She's close to her majority, but I quite honestly don't know what her majority is. If it's 18 or 20 or 21. I should have looked, but, you know, I didn't. Anyway, she's a young lady, and the only reason that she inherits her money, or the only way she will inherit her estate and everything, is if she gets married and her husband consents to change to her last name, change her surname, which is Beverly. So, but like everyone in town, she's from a little country town, I think it's somewhere in Essex. She comes to London to essentially find a husband. And when her uncle, her parents died when she was young, when her uncle leaves her this money, he appointed 4 different families to be guardians for her. One of them sort of watches over her money and her estate, and if she needs anything, she can go to him and ask for an advance or whatever. She's worth, I think, £100,000 or something like that. So one guy is sort of her money guy. Another is a couple, the wife of which is one of her childhood friends. I don't know if she was older than her and they were friends, or if she was maybe a governess temporarily or something, but it's she and her husband are another one. And then there is a single bachelor who also has quite a bit of money. He's elderly, but of course I think that means like 50 or something. And the fourth is someone that she doesn't know, that Cecilia doesn't know very well. She knows of them, but she doesn't really know how or why her uncle chose this fourth family necessarily to be in charge of her. So when she goes up to the country, she is followed, or goes along with, accompanied by, this is terrible. There are so many names and they're all really unusual, but they're sort of similarly unusual that I can't necessarily keep them straight. Mr. Monkton. Mr. Monkton is, he has designs on Cecilia. She does not know this at all. She still has no idea that he ultimately would like to marry her. Even though he is a cleric and a married man himself, he thinks he can just somehow get rid of his wife, or I don't know what, at some point in the future, and be there. So he be there for her and pick up the pieces, and he can marry her. Kind of creepy, let's be honest. But he is also, because he cares about her, truly cares about her, he is a good judge of character, and Cecilia relies on him a lot for advice on what to do with her life, what to do to help friends of hers that she meets, how to invest her money, things like that. So Mr. Monkton, is in and out throughout this whole entire book so far. I'm on page 496. So he is in and out as she sort of needs it, or he stops in to visit her once a month, you know, whatever, checks in. So her first place that she stayed is with her childhood friend, Mr. and Mrs. Harrell. She stays with them. They are very rich. They have considered having a good standing in town, in the town, and she thinks she's going to have a wonderful, lovely time with her old friend. And when she arrives, things aren't quite what they seem, and that's not super mysterious, but she just thinks to herself, oh, things have changed. She has been married for 10 or 15 years at this point. I forget how long it is, but she's been married for quite a while. My friend is still my friend. I still love her, but she has certainly changed with her marriage, her moving up a little bit in society, and with the influence of her husband, of course. So Cecilia has her own apartment in their large London house, and Mr. and Mrs. Harrell host a lot of parties. They're big party people. And shortly afterwards, Cecilia hears from Sir Robert Floyer that he has intentions to marry her. He's apparently fallen in love with her after seeing her one time, but really we all know it's just because he knows that she is loaded and he's got debts, you know. He's not a total scumbag, but he's not a great person. So Robert Floyer comes up to her and asks her to dance at one of these things, and she says, no, thank you. But people see them talking, and then it is widely assumed through town that they are shortly to be engaged, because that's how things worked in the late 1700s, apparently. Super gossipy. So she tells him politely to his face in semi-veiled terms, thank you, but no thank you. I am not looking to get married right now. I am not interested. I appreciate you showing me, you know, affection or preference, but I am not interested. So Mr. Harrell is the most ridiculous, annoying kind of person. You know, in the last book I talked about how Vanessa was an interrupter and doesn't listen, and she just like goes on a tangent and there's misunderstandings for no reason forever. Mr. Harrell is like that, only he is more infuriating. So this is his wife's husband. This is going to be a long video, and I'm really sorry for finishing 3 books. I'm going to talk a lot about this book I did not finish. Anyways, Mr. Harrell is the kind of person who thinks women are really dumb and they don't know their own mind. They're all flirts, and no matter how direct, indirect Cecilia is with him throughout her time spent with them, which is the majority of what I have read so far is her staying in their house with them, she's told him straight to his face on multiple occasions, I do not want to marry Sir Robert Floyer. Please stop spreading the rumors around. I am not going to marry him. And he just says, he brushes it off and talks over her and says, oh, no, you don't know your mind yet. It's okay. These delicate females have to decide these things on their own, and they are so flirtatious. They want to get all the attention from all the men, so they don't want to announce their engagement right away. Like that kind of smarmy crap. That's what he does all the time. It is so frustrating. Cecilia gives him the benefit of the doubt over and over and over again. And I just want to shake her and be like, girl, come on. At some point you have to be like, this person is not going to change. So what you do has to change. Otherwise you're going to go insane. That's insanity. Like, and she talks to her friend about it, tries to say to her, hey, listen, can you talk to your husband and tell him to cool it? And she just says, oh, no, he has his own mind. You know, he's his own man. Any kind of quarrel you have with him is between the two of you. I am not getting involved. End of story. So that's these two. She tries to go see if she can stay with another person. She talks to the money man, and he brushes her off. She asks to pay debts to her bookseller, and he tells her to send all the books back. No woman needs to be educated. You're not getting any money from me for any kind of reason. I don't care what it is, but your money is mine until you get married, essentially. So she leaves rightfully pissed off, and talks to Mr. Monkton about it. And he says, this is ridiculous. He's got some, you know, a bad reputation. He might be using your money himself to pay off his debts or gamble or whatever, but let me look into this. So Cecilia goes to the third house. This is the house of the older, rich bachelor. She gets there, and this man is kind of crazy. He lives on scraps. Everything is threadbare. There's dirt and dust everywhere in his house. things are falling down around him. It's sort of like Miss Havisham a little bit, only he's not stuck in some kind of time loop about a marriage that didn't happen, but like the way the house is described, and the servants are surly and they're underpaid, and he eats like terrible cuts of meat and very little vegetables. That's it. So she calls on him once and says, could I stay with you? And he says, yes, of course. Could you come back tomorrow and you can, you know, see your apartments then? So she comes back and looks, and it is disgusting. It is filthy. There are huge cracks in the windows. It's freezing cold. And he just keeps talking over her about how she's going to have to pay him something to rent there because he can't afford to be buying her food. And maybe she can go to essentially the flea market and buy a blanket if she thinks she'll be cold. It's all like very sketchy. So she says to his face, very bluntly but kindly, I will not stay here. I will not be staying with you. I will stay with my friends. It is fine. Do not trouble yourself on my account. I will not be staying with you. So she gets out and she thinks, what do I do? So she goes to this fourth family she doesn't know very well, the Delvilles, Mr. and Mrs. Delville, and they have a son whose name, unfortunately, is Mortimer. He's about her age, I think a little bit older, but Cecilia, they never say that she really outright has affection for him, but it's very heavily implied that Cecilia has at least a crush on him. And his father is kind of a tool, let's just be honest. And is always very busy and important, but you never know what he's doing exactly. He's very full of himself and his family. He thinks they're very, very like high and mighty. But his wife, Mortimer's mother, they are two peas in a pod. Cecilia and Mrs. Delville get along just like a house on fire. So there's lots of drama, things that happen that I did not see coming at all, that like dramatic stuff I'm not going to even hint at spoiling, because when it was happening I could not stop reading. Those are the days I read like 150 pages in a night. So eventually she goes to stay with the Delvilles. There were lots of false starts, but she just goes stay there. And now they're out at the Delvilles country house, which is sort of a crumbling castle. I think it's even like behind a moat somewhere in the country, which probably is now something like Slough or something. I don't know. But this is really, really good. It took me, I think, maybe 100 or so pages to really get into the language again, to get into who everybody was, because they all have weird names. Like there is a father and son, and their names are Lord Alford and Lord Durford or something like that, which just makes me think of Vern. Remember that Vern guy from the 90s? I don't know. They're kind of weird. There are all these men. Oh, there's even a duel in here. I forgot about it. See, there's so much that happens. There's a duel that happens between Sir Robert Floyer and somebody whose last name starts with a B, like Benfield or something. I forget. These two men are they're so touchy. Like their masculinity is so touchy. The two of them both are strutting around her like peacocks at this party, harassing the crap out of her. She's obviously terrified that everyone's in costume. She doesn't know exactly who is who. But these two guys are fighting over her as these characters. One is a devil, I think, and one is, I think, a char person. These two guys decide on their own to have a duel for her hand. She doesn't know really either of them, does not like either of them. It doesn't matter what she thinks, but they fight a duel. One guy gets shot. He doesn't die, but he's wounded, and because he is too full of pride to seek and continue the doctor's treatment that he really needs, he just retreats to a poorhouse, essentially, with his mother, who is a total whack job, and a sister who seems very nice. But everything is all about the boy in the household, and so she finds out and tries to help him. There's too much to talk about, but so far, everyone who thinks she is engaged to all these men, all these 4 different men, not at all true. Mr. Harrell keeps saying to everyone, spreading it around town, that she's going to marry Sir Robert Floyer, but it just keeps coming up again and again and again. And every time she hears about it, she'll hear like one of her friends, another girl that's sort of her same age, gossiping. She will come walk into the room and hear her talk about her and how she's engaged to this man. And she goes around the corner and says, let me assure you, I overheard you and I am not engaged to them. And they say, oh, no, fi, you're just lying. It's crazy. So I don't know where this is going. I am not going to read this super quickly. I really am enjoying diving deeply into this book and spending time with Cecilia. She is a very human, not perfect, but also kind of perfect kind of person. She's a great judge of character. She speaks a lot of sense. She knows her own mind. She has a lot of empathy and sympathy for the people in her life. She tries to help and do good with the money that she has, and tries to help, you know, people out and improve their situation so they can have a better life. She is a good friend and too trusting probably, but I am super excited about this book. Clearly, as I have talked for probably 10 or 15 minutes about this book. So at some point in the future, I will read this, finish it up, and then I'll do a full, proper review of this book. But has anyone else read Cecilia? I would love, seriously love to talk about this book with someone else. I don't know anyone else who's read it. I have read Evelina by her, which Sarah from Hardcover Hearts is hosting a group read, I think this month in March, for Evelina. I would have joined, but again, I already read it. It was a wonderful book, sort of similar in some ways, but just really excellent. It's much shorter too. So if you think Fanny Burney might be an author that you want to try, Evelina is certainly a place to go. I think it's maybe 300 pages or something. But I would love to talk about this with somebody if anyone has read this or anything else by Fanny Burney, quite frankly, because I just think she's fantastic. So yeah, that is what I have been mostly reading the last couple of weeks. I have to put this book down now. My hand is totally cramping. If you guys watch Friends, Phoebe's teaching Joey to play the guitar, you know, old lady, that's me. Yeah, what's up with you guys? What have you been reading? What did you DNF anything this week? Did you buy anything? I did buy a bunch of books on Book Outlet for my Library Thing anniversary, Thingiversary. That's at the beginning of April. Those should be coming hopefully next week sometime. We will see. Otherwise, I am just kind of same as usual, working on the house and getting ready to move my office in just over a week. And I just found out that my friend is coming to stay with me, not this weekend, but next weekend. So I have to remove the piles of books on the guest room bed right next to me here, so Angie has a place to sleep. So yeah, I'm just working on that. Otherwise, that's enough rambling. 27 minutes. That's a new record, I think, for me. But I hope you're all doing well, and I hope to talk to you in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all soon. Bye.